This is Lauren Greci, and you're listening to the Go and Tell podcast. Hi, friends, and welcome to the Go and Tell podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Greci, and I'm thrilled to have Liz Conlin with us today. I'm trying to think back to the first time I met you too. I think it was through Carrie Frazier. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
And then you baked a cake for Troy or for Clark? For Clark's first birthday, because it was gluten-free, I think dairy-free. It was absolutely delicious. So before we get into all of that, take a minute and introduce yourself to all the viewers and listeners.
So I'm Liz Conlin. I'm the owner of Fridgefull Thinking, which is a personal chef services company. And we've known each other for a while through mutual friends, my old next door neighbors, the Fraziers. Mm-hmm. Carrie's one of your very best friends, right?
Yeah, we're pretty close. And, it's nice having an orthodontic friend too. So he, nice braces afterwards.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So we know each other through the Fraziers. I lived in your neighborhood for 8 years, just moved out. I just finished up going through a divorce. And so I'm currently Liz Conlin, but I'm about to be back to Liz Bornstein. So I've yet to change that on, business pages and all of that. So very much in transition. I changed it on social media, but I'm sure people are seeing my name change and going, what the heck happened? But yeah, it's crazy because I'm seeing that a lot post pandemic. It seems like, I think COVID may have magnified whatever you were going through. It's just going to amplify it and just shine a big bright spotlight on your life, whether that's good or bad. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so before we get into all of those details, I want to hear more about how you started with Fridgefull Thinking, because you even wrote some recipes for the magazine that I once worked for, and those recipes were delicious. The photos were amazing, and you pulled through clutch with some of those photos that we needed last minute during an ice storm. You just knocked it out of the ballpark. That was a very fun situation. But tell everybody about Fridgefull Thinking. How did that start?
And then I'll have to tell you more about the week that you wanted the cookie recipe for St. Patrick's Day for your March issue, because there's more to that you don't even know. Oh, okay. So I'll go into that too. But basically, in college, I thought maybe I would do real estate. I ended up majoring in sociology and psychology. I loved learning about people, whether it's groups of people and why they are the way they are, how they got to be this way, and et cetera, or getting to know people on an individual level, really why you are the way you are, on a psychological perspective. But I kind of chose those majors because I just liked it, and you don't have to have a degree to go into real estate. And in any case, I graduated, I ended up in the mortgage industry and thought, well, I'll just learn the back end of the business. It was 2007. It wasn't the greatest time to get into real estate. Little did I know it was about to also not be a good time to be in the mortgage industry. So I went and started working for subprime mortgage companies, doing, the 12.5% cash out refis to pay people's credit cards and cars off and whatnot. Condos in Florida, did all of that. Was doing subprime during the recession. I did banking. I switched jobs. It was very high stress. I was good at it. And I still love finance and banking and mortgage and real estate and all of that. And I do have a passion for those things, but I was slowly realizing I'm kind of miserable. So I switched jobs. I switched bosses. I switched companies. I just kept making changes. I tried to better myself. I'll be a better employee. I'll be more organized. I was reading books on how to become CEO, how to kind of delve through the politics of the corporate world, being a woman. kind of tried to self-help my way out of a bad career. This is a common theme in my life. Let me just self-help my way out of a bad marriage, out of a bad career. I'll just try and fix myself over and over again and try and get different results. So I had switched companies and I was still just not fulfilled. And the weirdest thing, we actually did a weight loss challenge and there was like $800 on the line. I had less weight to lose than some, other people they're trying to lose 50 pounds. I'm trying to lose 15. And so it's a lot harder for me to win. So the last week I'm on work time, clocked in, Googling how MMA fighters and boxers and, wrestlers, how they make weight, and reading about, I don't know if you like MMA, UFC, all of that, but I'm reading about St. Pierre and how he makes weight. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to run around the neighborhood with a trash bag on, but I'm reading about what he does diet wise and all of this. And then at the end, it says, for $40,000 a year, you could also have a personal chef, or, you could do this yourself. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, his personal chef is making $40,000 a year off of just him. And so I click the link and it takes me to the American Personal and Private Chef Association, which is headed by Candy Wallace, who used to be a chef at the White House. She's had cooking shows. She's had all kinds of success. And I stumbled on this website and I didn't even know this existed. I knew that private chefs existed, like the Kardashians might have a chef that lives there or is there all the time, kind of at their beck and call. I didn't know that people would have a chef come in and just do their meal prep, make a few meals, maybe come in and do a dinner party. But it's different than catering. You're not delivering food. It's all cooking from the client's kitchen. And so I'm reading about this and then I start researching, are there a lot of personal chefs in Dallas? What's my competition? And it turns out it's a huge thing in California, New York, and like a lot of trends, things start on East Coast, West Coast, and then they work their way in. And the only chefs in Dallas, they weren't doing anything really healthy. And health and nutrition, just overall wellness has always been a huge passion of mine. And people had already been paying me to make food for baby showers and, help out with, someone's doing a bridal shower brunch or something. And so I was already helping people with food. People would come to me on advice on how to eat healthy, how to lose weight. And it just kind of all clicked. I kind of did the math and realized I could probably work less days per week, less hours. Less hours was a big fat lie, but I could probably work less days per week and make the same amount of money that I'm making in this high stress job where I'm sitting in a cubicle all day, eating junk, because there's barbecue catered in and there's food trucks and you're just sitting and, sitting is like the new smoking, right? And you're just sitting in a cubicle and it's high stress. You're getting yelled at by customers or by your boss or, title companies are failing you. And it was just so high stress. And so I talked to my then husband. He was really supportive and said, if this will make you happy and you can earn a living doing this, then let's do it. And a month later, I was on a plane by myself, traveling for the first time by myself, went to San Diego, did a personal chef seminar with Candy Wallace in her house on how to build your business as a personal chef. I still didn't do any formal chef training. I'm all self-taught. I'm just a big nerd and I read a lot. And my parents are amazing in the kitchen too. But that was May 2015. I was telling my boss that we needed to work on finding a replacement by that October. My husband built my website, and essentially from October through New Year's, I spent that time training and interviewing someone to replace me. At the time I was supporting several loan officers and doing all of the documentation gathering and income analysis and all that stuff. And so training someone to take my place. And right after the first of the year, I was out of there. So launched my website and I'm in a bunch of these little mommy Facebook groups, official McKinney moms, Frisco area business moms. I'm neither a mom nor do I live in McKinney, but there's like 10,000 women in there, and my page got shared through a couple of these sites, and it just kind of went gangbusters. Nice. So I had a couple really good clients in the beginning. One owns Fit for Mom with, stroller striders. I don't know if you've heard, actually, she would be an amazing guest for your podcast too. Yeah. Leslie Cuevas, she was one of my very first clients, and she's dealing with, she's an RN, and she's dealing with the exercise portion of women trying to get in shape. And if they're failing, they're coming to her saying, I'm working out all the time. Why am I not seeing results? And she's saying, abs are made in the kitchen. Like yes, this is great that you're working out, you're building muscle, you're helping your metabolism and your bone health. But if you're eating, spaghetti and meatballs every night and garlic toast, like, you're not going to reach your goals. So she would send them to me. And so it was just word of mouth. I really never needed to spend money on advertising. By 2018, I had a good wait list going, like 200 people on a spreadsheet, just waiting.
Oh my goodness. That is incredible.
So COVID kind of screwed things up, but for a while there, like at the beginning of 2020, I was pulling people off my wait list that had literally reached out to me in 2018 and had just been waiting. And I really just don't have a lot of competition in the area. There's not a lot of chefs doing healthy food. You can go pick up casseroles and that kind of thing. Or they give you a menu and say, here's your choices. What do you want? Whereas I'm customizing menus for the family. So if your kids have food allergies and your husband hates onions, or, whatever the case is, that every week you're going to have meals and snacks in your fridge that are safe for everyone to eat, that hopefully everyone will enjoy, and you can feel good about what you're putting in your body. So it just developed and really took off. My health knowledge has grown immensely. I ended up being diagnosed with an autoimmune disease shortly after quitting my job. And I quit, and I would say I was perfectly healthy. I was already having brain fog and some symptoms of autoimmune that I just had no idea. I didn't know what was going on. But a month after I quit the mortgage industry, I woke up with swollen knuckles and thought, I must be holding my knife wrong, or I'm squeezing the sponge too tight when I'm doing dishes, and then it's like, oh, now it's all my knuckles, and now it's my wrists. And so I had to learn pretty quickly about anti-inflammatory diets and autoimmune protocol and things that you're very familiar with. I know. Yes. Gluten-free cooking, all that.
Celiac or like Hashimoto's, or what is the like?
No. So at first, and it's so common to get misdiagnosed in the beginning. So mine just started out with arthritis in my knuckles. So they thought it was rheumatoid arthritis, but then as it really developed and progressed and I got more labs done, it was a lot more, there was a lot more spinal involvement. So there's a different umbrella of diseases called spondyloarthropathies. And that's like your psoriatic arthritis, reactive arthritis, and then ankylosing spondylitis, which is what I have. And spondy means spine. So it's arthritis of the spine. And so there's a couple different ones that fall under that umbrella. But usually people that have one of these diseases test positive for this antigen, the HLA-B27 antigen. I tested positive for that. It also runs in my family. And my lumbar spine just kind of disintegrated. It was for a couple years there, it was basically migrating. The inflammation would just kind of pick a new group of joints, wrists or shoulders or spine, and just kind of attack. And with ankylosing spondylitis, you also have inflammation in basically your ligaments and your tendons, or where they attach. And so like Achilles tendons, you know, I would get up in the morning and they would just be super tight. Like it almost feel like they were going to snap, like just so tight. And then all of the things that go with basically every autoimmune disease, all the brain fog, the chronic fatigue, you know, you're forgetting things and you're just not yourself. Your brain is inflamed. So you have depression type symptoms. You're just not yourself.
It's a mess.
Yeah, for sure. You can relate. I know.
Yeah. And what's hard is getting the diagnosis, because there's so many different things that, you know, you get brain fog or you get these different things that it's like, it's so hard to find the answer.
Yes. Yeah. And I've been through 4 rheumatologists. I never wanted to just go straight to the biologics. You know, you see all the commercials for Enbrel and Humira and, you know, all these different drugs. And, I mean, if I need a drug, I'll take a drug. You know, if I have strep throat, I'm going to go get the antibiotic, but I'm also not the one that's asking for a Z-Pak when I have a cold. I understand how bacteria and viruses work and your gut flora, and you shouldn't just be, you know, popping back antibiotics whenever you have a sniffle. And I certainly didn't want to take something that was going to just put my immune system to sleep, to where now, you know, if I get the flu, I may end up with pneumonia, or you end up with MRSA, or, I mean, you end up catching everything. You know, you're around a kid that just got vaccinated, that's, you know, your virus is shedding, and you could end up picking up something that they just got vaccinated for. I mean, it's just, your immune system is just shut down. So I did take some meds in the beginning to get things kind of under control, just for some symptom management, because I really was pretty miserable. But I ended up seeing a functional medicine practitioner that gets along with my rheumatologist. They definitely see eye to eye. Trisha O'Brien in Frisco, she's an MD as well. She was a general surgeon and then got diagnosed with lupus, realized Western medicine was not going to get her, you know, not cured, but she was not going to be able to get her lupus under control using just with Western medicine alone. And so she went the functional medicine practitioner route, and she's the one that, she did tons of testing on me and really kind of got to the root cause, and helped put my autoimmune disease in remission, which, you know, I had all these dietary triggers. I couldn't eat gluten. I didn't eat gluten or dairy for like 2 years. And I did feel much better. I did an elimination diet where you basically take out all the usual suspects and go pretty hardcore, eating things that you know you don't have a problem with. And then at the end of a month, slowly add one thing back in at a time to see what is really triggering a reaction. And when I did it, I lost 12 pounds in a week, because it just all the inflammation, because when you're that inflamed, you're retaining water. And so all that, I mean, you could see it in my face, where all of a sudden it's like, I don't have a double chin, because all the inflammation is down, and you just kind of shed all of it. My skin was looking better. And then unfortunately, when I added things back in after my 30 days, it was, you know, symptoms would immediately come back. So, you know, I go eat some cheese and I wake up and my knuckles are swollen again and my rings are stuck on my fingers. So,
So what does your diet look today? Like, now that you've been on this healing path for a little bit, are you still avoiding a lot of those inflammatory foods, or are you able to incorporate more back?
Well, what's really weird, and I'm sure we'll get more into this later, but one thing that Dr. O'Brien had said, she said, you know, you've got to do the diet and you've got to do the supplements. You've got, you know, we've got to get your gut flora in check. You've got candida overgrowth. We need candida to go down. We need this specific gut flora to go up. And you have basically no vitamin D, no omega-3s, you know, so we fixed all these things. And she said, and you have to go do EMDR, which I don't know if you're familiar with EMDR. It's a form of therapy that it was actually created for vets that have PTSD. Okay. But it essentially forces your body to process out trauma, and it gets rid of the physical reaction associated with emotional trauma. So for a vet, he hears a loud noise and he doesn't now immediately go into fight or flight thinking something's blowing up. Right. But they're using it for, anything from, bullying to anything, sexual abuse victims, just you got fired from work and you can't get this out of your head, the way that your boss looked at you, or, whatever it is that is kind of stuck, because your body does hold trauma. And when it's stuck, you will basically go into chronic fight or flight, and your immune system also goes into chronic fight or flight. So just like a vet reacting to fireworks, it's an unnecessary reaction. It's an unwarranted reaction. The fireworks are not going to cause him harm, but his brain, the last time he heard this big boom, his friend's arm was getting blown off. So your brain cannot really differentiate. So it's the same thing. It doesn't have to be that big of trauma to be trauma that's causing you, issues in your life. But your immune system will do the same thing. Your immune system is reacting to things that are not a big deal. My immune system should not be attacking my joint tissue. There's nothing wrong with my joint tissue. It's not like I just got a joint replacement and now it's being rejected. These have been my joints for 30 some odd years, but my immune system's basically freaking out. And so Dr. O'Brien said, you have to do EMDR or else you will not heal. And she said, you've got childhood trauma and you have to deal with it. And I said, I don't have childhood trauma. And she said, yes, you do. And I said, no one ever beat me. No one abused me in any way. I don't have childhood trauma. And she just looked at me and she's like, you have childhood trauma. It doesn't matter that no one abused you. Don't compare. Just because you feel like your trauma is not as traumatic as someone else's, that does not negate the fact that you've been through things and your body is holding on to these things and your immune system is freaking the hell out. And, these doctors don't ask why your body's on fire. They're just getting the fire hose out and trying to throw water on it, but it may be a gas fire. No one's asking the why with these autoimmune diseases. And they're now using EMDR with kids that have pandas. Are you familiar with pandas?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and they're finding out that it's helping kids get over pandas. So in any case, I did EMDR. I had major breakthroughs. And this was right before the pandemic hit. I had huge revelations, processed a lot of things. And what's really weird is I kind of cheated on my diet. I started eating some dairy. And normally I would wake up the next morning and can't get my rings off. Right. And I wasn't reacting. And it was so weird. I'm like, am I just in remission? Is it just dairy? And so I started testing different things, eating different grains, maybe not gluten, but eating oats and rice and corn and soy and the grains that typically cross react for me. Nothing's causing problems. So I finally flooded my body with gluten just to see what would happen and had no reaction. And so I'm trying not to pig out on gluten. I'm still allergic to wheat, and which makes sense. I'm allergic to every grass, and ragweed, all the pollen. It's no wonder that I'm, allergic to wheat. And there's a lot of other, inflammatory issues with gluten, even if it's not causing a direct, immediate effect on me. I still don't really need to be eating it. But it's weird. I've been able to go drink a beer or eat a bagel in New York City and I'm okay. So now I would say I'm kind of on a modified paleo. Last night for dinner, I had filet mignon and like chili garlic shrimp and asparagus and cauliflower rice. So, I mean, I'm still trying to eat a lot of lean proteins. The fillets were organic and grass fed. So yes, people think of beef as inflammatory, but you are what you eat, but you are what you eat eats too. So if the cows are eating grass and, if the chickens are eating what they're supposed to be eating and not just a bunch of corn and soy, the fats are higher in omega-3s and lower in omega-6 and 9s. So yes, I'm eating beef maybe once a week. But it's still less inflammatory than, if I just went to a restaurant and got a steak. But yeah, lots of lean proteins, lots of vegetables, just as much produce as I can. I have a major sweet tooth. And so I try to eat fruit that's in season. That helps. So right now, all the weird melons that are out, I'm like obsessed with melons and stone fruits, all the hybrids, pluots and peacherines. I just bought peacherines, like peach nectarine, hybrid. So I try to eat lots of produce, lean proteins, lots of fish, high omega-3s, really, kind of an anti-inflammatory, lots of turkey and fish and chicken.
Hey friends, would you do me a favor? Would you subscribe to the show by clicking that subscribe button wherever you're listening? It makes a huge difference for the Go and Tell podcast community. I would also love for you to share this show with a friend. I know some of you found this show because a friend recommended it to you, so thank you for listening and being here, for subscribing and sharing and showing all your love and support. Thank you. I also want to use this time to share my very favorite sparkling water that I have been drinking recently. It is Mad Tasty. It has 20 milligrams of broad spectrum hemp extract, 0 sugar. All the sweeteners is infused from natural fruit essence. They're under 15 calories per can, gluten-free, vegan, and there are now 4 delicious flavors that are just so yummy. So if you go to madtasty.com, you can use my code LaurenG10 for 10% off your order. So go to Mad Tasty, that's MADTASTY.com, and use my code Lauren, LAURENG10 for 10% off. Music was created for the show by Matt Bowen, and I'm your host, Lauren Greci. Now let's rejoin the conversation. During this healing process, so not only are you then able to now realize too that a lot of the food that was inflammation for your body is now maybe being shifted into, now your trauma was more of an inflammatory than the food was. So going through all of this healing and this process, what are some revelations that occurred during this time?
Yeah. So the biggest one, and so essentially with EMDR, I'm sure you're familiar with like classical conditioning, like Pavlov's dog, right?
Yeah.
The dog hears the bell and is now salivating.
Right.
So with EMDR, it's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So essentially there's a vibration happening that you can feel behind your eyeballs, and you install, so to speak, a safe place. So your brain associates this vibration with something of your choosing. For me, it's a very specific beach on St. Thomas, Megan's Bay. And so the very first time you're like installing your safe place, right? So I'm thinking of the beach, what I can hear, taste, smell, see. It's the most relaxing, calming place I've ever been. It's just ocean waves and whatnot. Then still holding these paddles that are like sending the vibrations kind of behind your eyeballs. You close your eyes and think of whatever your traumatic target is. So let's say it's you being bullied in 7th grade. You're watching it happen to you. And so the vibration behind your eyeballs is kind of telling your brain, calm down, relax, it's okay. While you're watching this thing happen to you. And so maybe 30 seconds to a minute at a time, you're thinking of this thing, and then you open your eyes, tell your therapist kind of what you saw. Well, I noticed it's not just that I'm being bullied, it's the teachers weren't doing anything about it. Mm-hmm. And this is why I feel like, authority figures aren't going to have my back. So you have these little lies that you've told yourself that you've learned from these experiences. And by watching yourself go through these things, you can, number one, look at yourself with a new sense of empathy. Because if you're looking at this happen to you from an outsider's perspective, there's a lot less blame and shame, regardless of whatever the target is. And you're just seeing everything through a fresh set of adult eyes. So with these targets, it would take me on average 2 to 3 sessions with my therapist weekly to get through, one of these targets. And you're measuring the level of discomfort in your body, physical discomfort. And it could be in your throat. And a lot of times it's, if you have it in your throat, it's because you felt like you needed to say something and you couldn't. Or it's stomach, which is really more representative of fear. For me, it's chest. It's like I can't breathe. And that's more indicative of feeling hurt, or like something's happened to me. Someone's not sticking up for me. Someone's not there for me. And you're measuring this level of discomfort, and you are done and finished with that target when it goes down to a 0. So I was able to process these things out, in 2 to 3 sessions. And then we're kind of going in chronological order. We worked through negative self-talk. Apparently I was telling myself that I'm stupid about 100 times a day. That was the very first thing. And I've been doing that apparently since I was about 6. And I'm, watching myself as a 6-year-old, basically hating on myself and telling myself that I'm stupid. No one likes me. Everything's my fault. And realizing I know IQ wise, I'm an intelligent human being. I've had tests done. I know that I'm a smart person. If I leave my phone inside on the counter and I have to run, back inside the house to go get my phone, and I call myself a name in my head, like you don't even realize how often you're doing it. But so anything like that, where it's a seemingly small thing, but now it's almost like my brain autocorrects when I immediately go to blame myself or say, God, you idiot. It's like autocorrect happens and it goes, actually, no, you're pretty smart. And it's like, I kind of shake myself out of it. We did a whole thing on me being bullied, which was all body image related. And for the first time in 30 some odd years, I don't have any hatred toward my body, which, when you have an autoimmune disease, or just maybe you have chronic pain because of an injury, you take your body for granted when you're younger, and you hate the way it looks, at least for a lot of, males and females both, but you hate on it. It's, why are my thighs so big? Or why do my arms look fat in every picture? Or how come, all I see in this picture is my acne scars or my nose, or, we're so hard on ourselves and we hate on our bodies so much, but our bodies are beautiful, functional, amazing things, capable of all these things. And we just totally take it for granted. And that was huge, getting an autoimmune disease. All of a sudden my body parts are failing. And then I'm beating myself up for hating on my body when it could do all the things. Now it can't do all the things. And now I hate it even more. So I'm in yoga crying because my shoulders are giving out. And I literally dislocated a shoulder in yoga, had surgery. I was really hard on my body, and I wasn't accepting that I could not do these things anymore. My dad's lumbar spine is in better shape than mine is, which is ridiculous. He's in his 70s. So I was really hating on my body in different ways. At first it's because I'm not skinny or tall. And then it's, I can't open a freaking jar anymore. Like, my body is failing, and other people with this disease are in wheelchairs and they're using canes and walkers. And I took my body for granted, and I hated it then and I hate it now. And I did EMDR around body image and had major revelations around just your weight is not what defines you. What other people think of your body just doesn't matter. And it's so bizarre. After EMDR, I've been able to treat my body the way that I would treat someone that I love. So, and that's something that Dr. O'Brien said too. She said, how would you treat yourself if you loved yourself? And it totally caught me off guard, because she's calling me out on not loving myself. She's telling me I'm treating myself like crap, and really making me think about it. And because I know you're also a 2 enneagram, right?
Yeah.
So am I. And so the way that you treat your kids, you know, if they've got food allergies and you're making them smoothies in the morning and you're making sure their lunches are packed, and then you're starving, or you're eating a granola bar and feeding them, you know, cut up baked sweet potato. They're eating something green and something orange and a protein and some fruit, and they're doing all the healthy things. They're getting enough sleep, and you are just running yourself ragged. And it's like, but if you really loved yourself, what would you be if you treated yourself like a separate entity? If you treated your future self like a separate entity that you love, so that future self is thankful for past self for setting it up for success, how different would your life be? What does that look like? Does that mean putting supplements in a Monday through, you know, it's setting yourself up for success, treating yourself with love, making sure that you are drinking enough water and getting enough sleep and using sunscreen and all these things. So treating myself differently and not hating on myself and thinking, God, you haven't eaten anything green today. Like, eat your veggies, you know, go outside, you're vitamin D deficient, like go sit outside, put sunscreen on your face, and, you know, and then, but go sit outside for 30 minutes. Right. And then the big catalyst, this was right before the pandemic started. Like I said, I'd been averaging 2 to 3 sessions per target. And then I got stuck. I had witnessed a really horrific child abuse incident, basically at the Texas State Fair when I was in middle school. And the kid actually passed away. And I found out I've always sucked up the news, and I read it in the newspaper a couple days later. I was 11. And at the time, I had a boyfriend. We were sitting there waiting for his mom to come pick us up from the fair. And he was physically restraining me, holding me back, because I apparently thought that I could go stop this mother from doing what she was doing. But no one around was doing anything. People were looking horrified. There were cops just chit-chatting. I mean, no one was doing anything. And then I've always been, I drink up the news, and I used to read the Dallas Morning News like every 11-year-old, right? And so I literally see her mugshot in the paper, and it's, you know, it's twin boys. One of them already had a broken arm, and they talked about that and how CPS had already been involved multiple times with this family. But the boy that I saw just being majorly physically abused passed away. And as an 11-year-old, I took all of that accountability. That was 100% my fault, right? I mean, we know as adults, no 11-year-old should have even seen that. It shouldn't have happened in the first place. And it certainly wasn't my fault or my place to try and go. I mean, thank God at the time my boyfriend held me back, because I probably would have gotten punched in the face or, you know, whatever. Right. I would have been assaulted probably. And if that's the way she treated her kid, I'm sure she wouldn't appreciate my parenting advice as an 11-year-old. So, but I got stuck on this trigger, or this target. And it was such a horrible image to think about. So I'm closing my eyes and I'm thinking about, and I'm watching this thing happen. And my therapist noticed, she's like, the level of discomfort that you're experiencing isn't decreasing. It's going throat, stomach, chest, but it's it's just remaining at a 5. Like, we're not getting anywhere. And have you noticed every time you're watching the situation, you never express any anger or fear or hurt, resentment toward the mother. It's everyone around that's not doing anything. It's your boyfriend that's holding you back. It's you for not yelling or doing something differently. It's, you're noticing all these things with the situation, but there's really nothing toward the mother. And she said, and there's a major kind of theme here where it's, why aren't the adults helping the kid in need, essentially, right? And I have a strong urge to help people in need, and especially kids. And I have a major soft spot for abused children and animals and women. But to the point where I could hear a kid crying in Target, and most females, I think, especially, I mean, I don't have kids, but I think most females hear a kid screaming and they go, oh, mom said no to the toy, huh? Or someone missed his nap time. I would immediately have anxiety, and I'd have to go to the aisle and just make sure that nothing bad is happening to this child. And it was such an abnormal overreaction. Or I could be running through our neighborhood, I hear a toddler screaming, and I have to stand there and I stop my run and I wait to see, is something horrible happening in this house? Or is this like, Jackie doesn't want to take his bath? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Most of the time it's kids just cry and they didn't get the Fruity Pebbles or whatever. But in any case, I am so overreactive to abuse and to adults not helping children when they're supposed to. So my therapist at the time said, there's something that happened chronologically before this where adults let you down in some way. You needed them and they weren't there. And until we process that, you're not going to get through this one. She's like, you're stuck. You're in basically a loop and you're not getting anywhere. You need to think on it and figure out what it is. And I'm like, I have no idea, and sure enough, before my next weekly session, I figured it out. And it was basically the year before, maybe 6 months before that. I'm not even sure. I mean, it was pretty recent, to that incident too. I myself, I was having mental health issues. I was a depressed kid. I think just neurotransmitters. I think I'm just one of those humans that will probably always have to be on an antidepressant. Just like if you had type 1 diabetes, you would probably always have to do the insulin shots. It's just one of those things. I think my chemicals are just not quite right. But at the time I had worked up all this courage and I wrote a letter, to my mom actually, and basically said, this is not normal. What I'm experiencing is not normal. I need help. I need to see someone. I had teachers that had noticed that I was depressed, and had sent me to the guidance counselor. And it was obvious that I think it was obvious that I was depressed, but I was just crying over everything and anything and nothing. And it was like all the time. And at the time, she focused, she's very scientific. She's, her PhD work is in neuroscience and cognition, and she's an audiologist, but she kind of sort of blamed basic needs. Like, you're not on a good sleep schedule. You need to be eating better. You need to be exercising more, all these things. And at the time it felt like I was getting blamed for my own mental health issues. I needed her help. And I did eventually start seeing a psychiatrist, and I did get on like an SSRI, but not till a little bit later. But at the time I felt like I did not get the emotional support that I needed. And my parents had just divorced, and it felt like it just didn't feel like adults were there for me. And so we ended up kind of going back in time, and we treated that as a target with with the letter, and me kind of getting up that courage to say, I'm going through this huge thing. Got through that super quick, like figured it out. I'm like, oh yeah, like I deserve to be cared for and nurtured. And I shouldn't have to do everything on my own. And I shouldn't have to be the caregiver of everyone else and never expect any care in return. Mm-hmm. It's not selfish to expect some kind of care and nurturing from the people that you love. And once I got through that target, I got through the child abuse one very quickly. And I quickly realized that I was very triggered by no one taking care of this child in his time of need. And I felt like I hadn't been taken care of in certain ways. And that it was then my duty to make sure everyone else gets taken care of.
That's where the Enneagram 2 comes from. Because your Enneagram comes from a place of hurt.
Yes, mm-hmm. For sure. And I'm half 2, half 4. So the 4 is where I get all the artsy, like mm-hmm. I'm obsessed with music and art and expressing myself and deep emotions and all of that. Okay. But that revelation of I also deserve care. Asking for help has always been really difficult. And that honestly was the catalyst for my divorce too. At that moment, and this was when we were spending all this money remodeling our house. My ex-husband's nephew had flooded our house in May, and this was January. So we had been remodeling our house for 6 months. We've been fighting with our insurance company, with contractors. We had $10,000 worth of tile laid wrong with the wrong thin set that we had to have ripped up and redone. We had to basically sue our contractor. I can't even tell you his name because I had to sign an NDA. I mean, it was one bad thing happening to us after another. Like, we had deaths in the family. We had cancer in the family, cancer with our friends. We went through a series of unfortunate events. And then I did all this therapy. And then all of a sudden I'm realizing I also deserve to be cared for. I can't be the sole giver of emotional support on this planet. And my therapist made me aware of the starfish story. Do you know the starfish story? It's the, so now I want a starfish tattoo because of this stupid story. But basically there's a little boy walking along the beach, and there's all these starfish that are beached, and he's picking them up one by one, and he's just heaving them into the ocean, right? And he's walking along the beach and just picking them up and throwing them in. And this old man walks up and says, "What are you doing?" And the kid said, "Well, I'm saving the starfish. They're all beached. They're going to die." And he said, "Kid, there's miles of beach. There's thousands of starfish. You can't possibly make a difference. Why are you even trying?" And the kid just looks him dead in the eye, bends down, picks up a starfish, chunks it into the ocean. And he said, "Well, I made a difference to that one." And it's, you can't save the world. There's always horrible, tragic things happening. Like, I can't even talk about elephants without crying. You cannot. And I'm such a, I wouldn't call myself necessarily an empath, but I'm highly sensitive, and I'm more likely to cry over your pain than my own. Yeah. But I cannot save the world. And just that realization that not only can I not save the world, but I can also ask for help. That doesn't make me selfish. And I should be able to ask for help and expect care and expect to be treated the way that I would also treat people that I love. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, any friendship that was kind of one-sided was kind of starting to anger me. And I had all this new anger, and I don't really do anger. It's kind of a new emotion for me. And I was having to really deal with that and realizing, I don't know that my husband, I don't think these are skills that he can build. I think he's not giving me the emotional support that I need. And I don't know that our personality types are compatible in this way. But I wanted it so badly to work and for us to be able to fix these things. But that revelation was really the catalyst toward me realizing that, Troy's not my person, unfortunately. And me being highly sensitive and him being as logical, analytical as he is, he doesn't respond with empathy first off. That's not his kind of go-to. And I kind of just thought I could get the emotional support I needed from girlfriends and my sister and whoever else. And realized after a lot of therapy, like, no, I really do need whoever I'm going to spend the next 50 years with has to be my person. If something bad happens, if I'm going to start crying into someone's shoulder, it should be my spouse, Yeah. And so, I mean, those were the huge revelations, just, not hating my body and myself. And then also realizing that other people should be treating me a certain way. And that's how I treat people, with love and empathy and care. And you deserve that too,
Yeah. Man, we're very, very similar listening to you, especially like the empath part.
You and I are very similar in that empathic, like I found out the neighbors next to Carrie and Jason, they lost 2 of their pets, their family pets, in like the same week. And it was, both were unexpected. And, they put both on Facebook. I'm not really good friends with those neighbors. I know them, I know they're super sweet and they're great people. And, I see their kids out and they're always sweet and well-behaved and everything, but I don't know their animals. I really don't know them on an intimate level. And she's posting about losing 2 pets in 1 week. And I'm just like sobbing, like uncontrollable, hysterical sobbing. I'm thinking about her and her family having to put 2 animals to sleep in a week, but I never expect anyone to care about me in that way.
So I'm curious too, then, if you're the same way where you would always text people and be like, hey, I'm thinking about you. How are you doing? But no one would ever text you back and ask you how you're doing. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's definitely the empath, and then the enneagram too. Like, that's right down my alley. I'm always thinking about everybody else, and I want to put other people's needs first. And yes, I want to like solve all the world's problems. I want to save all the dolphins. I want to save all the elephants. I want to like join the Sea Shepherd and be out in the ocean and stop the slaughtering, but I can't,
Right.
Yeah. But I feel so like saddened. I remember the first time I watched The Cove, because I've watched it a couple of times. I was just sobbing. Oh my goodness. And 2, so funny story. The now it's gonna blank me. Jennifer Aniston movie with the dog, Marley.
Yes.
Marley
and Me.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Oh my gosh. So I had just started dating Steven, and I want to say this was like the first or the second time that I had met his parents, and we were in Louisiana for Christmas, and we go to the movie theater to see Marley and Me. I am sobbing my makeup off, like mascara, eyeliner, just, and when I cry like that, like I'm blowing my nose for 20 minutes and it's not a cute blowing of your nose. It's like, like
this is an
elephant.
Ugly cry.
Oh yeah.
Like ugly crying. Yes.
And so we go out into the hallway and nobody else is crying. Like, what's wrong with you people? It's just like a mess.
Yes.
Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the phrase highly sensitive person?
Is that ring a bell?
No. It's kind of like being an empath, but there's some key differences. But especially if you're more sensitive to like strong smells and cigarette smoke and loud noises, and just if you grew up with people telling you that you're overly sensitive, you're too sensitive, you may be a highly sensitive person. So like empaths really feel other people's emotions in kind of a different way. Highly sensitive people, they do pick up other people's kind of vibrations, but it's not necessarily that someone's mood changes and they feel it change. It's more that you really can put yourself in their shoes and you really do feel it like it's your own pain, but you're just sensitive in general. Like you don't like violence in movies. And there's like, I can watch movies about war and stuff. And I'm kind of, if it's just people like getting shot and whatever, I'm fine. But like Django or the Water for Elephants, like anything where there's violence, especially just a scene, one of those scenes where it's like, it's just lasting too long and you just like want it to stop and you get that anxiety. But it's made my business great because it's all I'm doing is kind of, empaths and enneagram 2s have a tendency to meddle in other people's lives, right? You take on projects, you want to fix people. Correct me if I'm wrong, if that doesn't fit, tell me. But this is a way, without going to med school, without becoming a nutritionist, without becoming a life coach, I can basically help put people on diets. And, I work with people that have lots of health issues, especially with the pandemic. I didn't cook at all for like 3 months and then started cooking for people who are immunocompromised because obviously they are very, they're isolated, right? So I have one of my best guy friends has cancer. He moved from Colorado. He owns a brewery out there, moved back in with his parents in Rowlett. His mom got diagnosed with breast cancer several months before he got diagnosed with testicular cancer. So they decided we'll just go through all the chemo and everything together. And so I've been cooking for them. Obviously they're incredibly isolated. And then I had a client that's in heart failure and, someone with an autoimmune disease. But it's a way where like, him having cancer, I can't choose his doctor for him. I can't tell him what to do, what to eat, but with cooking, it does give me like some semblance of control because I'm like, oh no, you're going to eat your greens. I'm like, I'm going to shove celery juice down your throat now. Have some bone broth. And so, I can do all the healthy things that I know without, I'm not giving medical advice. People, they're on different diets and whatnot. And I'll say, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a registered dietitian or nutritionist. Run this diet by your doctor, but here's what I'm doing based on what I've read and Heart Association or whatever it is. But it's a way for me almost to meddle in people's lives in a healthy way. Because what you put in your body is one of the biggest parts of your life, right? As far as your health goes, what you're eating. So if I'm in control of what you're eating, I can watch your labs change. And that's the most gratifying thing is, I pick up a new client. They say my cholesterol's off, my, this, that, and the other. So, and sometimes they'll show me their labs or I'll talk to their nutritionist and I'll get them eating more vegetables than they've ever eaten in their entire life. They don't even realize they're really eating healthy. It doesn't taste healthy to them. And in 6 weeks, they're going, oh my gosh, all of my numbers are totally different. My doctor is thrilled and my nutritionist wants your card. And I can kind of pat myself on the back a little bit. And they're still the ones making the big changes and making the choices, but I'm the one chopping up the veggies and sneaking it in the sauce, And so and I'm sure you're like that with your kids too. You can do these things to show you care and that really makes a difference. Like I can't make everyone on the planet eat their vegetables, but I can make a big difference for this family and that family and his lab results. And
it goes back to that starfish. You can,
for sure,
that one starfish.
Right. Yep. Exactly. Without going back to school too.
Right.
So, or getting sued because, I like, I'm not a doctor. Please don't sue me. But please eat this thing. So anyway.
Well, Liz, I want you to say one thing. So if someone is going through, let's pick the trauma, for instance. If someone is going through trauma or wants more information on the process that you went through, and maybe they're just curious and that sounded really intriguing, what would you reach out to them and say? If you could tell them something, what would you tell to this person?
First of all, to everyone, I think literally everyone needs therapy. So, and anyone who's done therapy pretty much says the same thing. It's not because you're crazy, quote unquote. It is like, we all think about things in certain ways. Our brains tell us lies to protect us. If you can get past these lies and figure out why you do the things that you do, you can live a much healthier, happier life where you're not stressing as much. It's not to discount what you've been through or invalidate feelings that you have, but it's okay, these things happen. So, what now, right? You can't just put up walls and never, experience love or never take a chance again. But especially with trauma, just because you weren't abused or you think other people went through things that are way worse, that doesn't mean that you don't have things that you need to process. I don't like the phrase get over, because that's like indicative. I mean, it's kind of an ableist attitude. Like, you should just be able to not think about something that happened to you and it'll just go away. And that's not how our brains work. No. You have to process through the things that you've been through that make you who you are. So finding a good therapist, and it's like dating. It's when you're looking for a therapist, a lot of people will go to one and they'll go, well, I really just didn't like that, and that's not for me. And that's like, trying one beer and saying, I guess I just don't like beer, or going on one date and saying, I guess I just don't like men, or, whatever. I've been on dates that make me think that, but, you really have to click with that person and feel like you can tell that person anything. And I did have a therapist that was really kind of toxic for my goals. We did not see eye to eye on health. She just really did not believe that there was any scientific correlation between diet and chronic illness and autoimmune disease. Oh. And she was kind of the mindset that you should just take the drugs and eat whatever the heck you want and just enjoy it. And she really thought she thought I really had disordered eating, and that I just really had a problem with, I was just scared of certain foods. And I'm like, no, when I eat that, I wake up with joint pain. Like, it's real. This is not like all in my head, so finding the right therapist and someone that you click with, and especially for men, there's a stigma still. And I mean, I think women are more likely to seek out emotional support through girlfriends and through Bible study and through all these different things. And men get together and I know this is a huge generalization, but it's like, they don't deep dive, and, they don't want to talk about their feelings, and they think it makes them, a certain way or whatever. But what they don't realize is, no, you really do need to talk about these things. And if you can't talk about it with your brother or your buddy or whoever, like, getting someone who has studied relationships, someone with letters behind their name, to weigh in on, and I've, now I'm back in the dating world. So now I'm seeing a lot more men are going to therapy, and a lot of them are saying, well, I dated this chick that I thought I was going crazy, or that I was a jerk. And nope, turns out she's a narcissist, and she was gaslighting the heck out of me. To just run things by someone, it's not because you're crazy. Crazy people don't ask whether they're crazy, right? So, I mean, that's the first thing. And then chronic illness wise, I'm actually writing a book on surviving chronic illness. because I feel like there's so many things that no one told me when I got diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. I wish someone told me all of these things, and no one did. And that you're going to think probably really terrible, dark thoughts. You don't want to live like this, or why me? Or you're resentful of your best friend who's healthy, or, there's all these things you go through when you have chronic illness, when your pain or your fatigue is all you can think about day in and day out, and you're still trying to raise your family, and you're still trying to maintain friendships and have a healthy relationship with your spouse and all of this. I can't even begin though. Like, that's way too much information for a podcast episode, which is why I'm writing a book on it. So
I'm excited. I'm so excited for that. So you're going to have to keep us all updated on that and when the book comes out and all those details, because that's going to be a good one. I can't wait to read that and read all your thoughts.
Well, good. Yeah. Now I just need to finish it. I have like 10,000 words written, and I swore that I would be done by the time the pandemic was over, and then the vaccine came out. So I'm like, oh, I better hurry up.
Well, that's good. You will get it done, and I will be the first one to buy a copy. So don't you worry.
Yes.
Okay. So then 2 questions at the end of the podcast. And girl, I could seriously talk to you about so many things. I have so many questions and things that I would love for you to expand on and touch on, but for the sake of time, we'll have to do a second one and discuss a few things a little further.
Yes.
What are you reading and what are you loving right now?
So I'm that person that's always reading like 4 things at once. I'm listening to an audiobook, and I'm reading this physical book and reading a Kindle, but the one that I'm reading right now that I'm getting the biggest kick out of, and I would highly recommend it. I actually have it in front of me. It's called How to Be Fine. I'll hold it up. It looks like this, How to Be Fine. And
I've heard that book. I'm pretty certain.
So there's a podcast called By the Book, and it's Jolenta Greenberg and Kristen Meinzer. I'm probably butchering that last name, but they decide that they're going to go through 50 self-help books. They're going to live out each one 2 weeks at a time. So like they read the Marie Kondo, that book, and they go through all their belongings, and, for 2 weeks, they're going to do the magic art of, or whatever, life-changing art of tidying up, whatever that is. The Marie Kondo book. They do all these different books for 2 weeks at a time. They're decluttering, and they're getting off their phone, and they're making time to go outside, and they're meditating, and all these different things. And then the book is basically what we learned, what works, what doesn't. And it's great because it's kind of a Cliff Notes version of all these different self-help books. And there's some on business, relationships. I mean, it's all over the place. Health. They read Tim Ferriss and, all these different books. And there's some similarities between the books, like, going outside. There's several books that they read that all talk about getting in nature more, or exercising outside, and all the benefits. And they're like, no, this really is a thing. But then there's also, people that just really hate bugs and would rather be inside. I don't know. So they talk about kind of what works, what doesn't, and just, which of these books are kind of just junk, or what ideas did not work for them. And they're very different. They had very different childhoods. They have very different approaches to self-help and therapy and all of this. So it's great to get both of their perspectives. And I've read probably half of the books that they're talking about, because I'm a big self-help nerd. And so it's kind of nice to like get their perspective on all these different books. So that's what I'm reading. I would highly recommend.
Okay. And then what are you loving?
Oh gosh. I would say just new experiences. I feel like I know there's the Delta variant and all this, but there's so many people vaccinated, and especially in Texas, we're kind of all treating it like it's just gone, and we're like, concerts are back and travel is back. And there's this new freedom that everyone is experiencing. I feel like I'm experiencing it a little bit more because I'm newly divorced. But traveling. In the last 2 months, I've been to Hawaii, New York, and Mexico. And it's girls trips. And I took my 10-year-old niece to New York City, and we're the same freaking person. We love all of the same foodie, cultural, we did a ghost tour. So I would say I'm loving, like, I want to say getting back to normal, but it's not the old normal. It's a new normal. Everyone is, I think, really appreciating relationships more and appreciating time spent together, time spent outside together, health and wellness and healthy relationships and travel. And there's just this new appreciation for getting together. So I've bought all the plane tickets and all the concert tickets. And like, I'm seeing Louis the Child at the end of this month, and just, any concert, any vacation, like if there's a cheap plane ticket or concert ticket, I'm buying it. Just all I just want to go experience all the things. So
that is awesome. Liz, thank you so much. So if someone wants to find you, what is the best way to find your website or your social media? Where can anybody find you?
A couple different ways. So I'm on Instagram. Personally, my handle is Born Liz Way, like born this way, but Born Liz Way. Or Fridgefull Thinking is my business, kind of like wishful thinking, but Fridgefull, full has 2 L's. So Fridgefull Thinking on Instagram or fridgefullthinking.com. My dog also has an Instagram account. You can follow Fifi's Golden Gram, so you can, whatever part of me you want to follow. Personally, it's all travel and mental health stuff and dating and relationships, or business. It's all food, or my dog, it's just all dog. So lots of ways.
That is awesome. Liz, thank you so much. So much
Thank
for
you.
this time. It's been so much fun chatting with you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And we'll have to do a deep dive. There's so much to unpack. We need to do a deep dive on some of these other things at a later time.
We can maybe even just break it into deep dive 1. This is what we're going to talk about. Deep dive 2.
Yes. Mental health, food. Exactly. I barely even talked about food.
I know. Okay. We will absolutely put this in the books, and we will do it for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Go and Tell podcast with Lauren Greci. If you liked what you heard today, please subscribe, comment, leave a review, and share with your friends. Music was created for the show by Matt Bowen, and I'm your host, Lauren Greci. I'll be back here next week with another great conversation. Thanks for listening today, friends.